After the Cell Saga and 7 Years of Peace, it's understandable why Gohan chose not to train after not reviving Goku. Every main villain that Gohan knew in his lifetime was either because of an enemy that Goku made in the past, like the androids from the Red Ribbon Army, or indirectly because of Goku's brother visiting Earth and tipping off the Saiyans and Frieza to the Dragon Balls. But in the years of Goku's absence, I can almost see why Gohan was so caught off guard by the sudden emergence of Majin Buu and the events that unfolded in the Buu saga. But after Majin Buu is defeated, there's virtually zero excuses for Gohan to have not continued his training seriously. Unlike Gohan's battle with Cell, when faced against Majin Buu, Gohan's latent potential and lackluster training wasn't enough to close the gap with Majin Buu after he absorbed Gotenks. And had it not been for Goku and Vegeta, Gohan and everybody else that wasn't destroyed by Majin Buu would have just been absorbed by him for all eternity. Gohan should have realized that even though Goku wasn't on the planet and even though Trunks never came back to the past to warn them about Buu, danger could appear on the Earth at any given moment, and if he wasn't prepared for it, then even more lives could continue to suffer. And in today's What If story, after losing to Majin Buu, Gohan realizes that in order to protect the people he cares about most, he actually needs to continue his training. That way he can stay prepared for whatever would come in the future. During this period of time, Gohan's training partner would be none other than Piccolo. While there are certain stronger fighters that could be trained with on Earth, including Goku and Vegeta, we've seen in the past that Piccolo is still Gohan's go-to training partner in almost every scenario. Before the Tournament of Power, Gohan chose Piccolo to train with in order to reawaken his ultimate form. And just recently, in the most recent chapters of the Dragon Ball Super manga, Gohan chooses to train with Piccolo again to learn how to control the powers of his beast form. While Gohan would still spend time with Videl and on his studies, he would spend even more time training with Piccolo, something that Chi-Chi wouldn't have a problem with after being turned into an egg by Majin Buu. And as expected, this training regimen would be extremely beneficial to Gohan's growth. During Dragon Ball, Piccolo has demonstrated on numerous different occasions that he understands Gohan's powers far better than anyone else. While Goku did realize that Gohan at the very least had some level of dormant potential, he was never really the best at helping Gohan release that power. On the other hand, Piccolo has helped Gohan reawaken his ultimate form twice in the Dragon Ball Super storyline, once before the Tournament of Power and then during Super Heroes. But it was also largely due to Piccolo's plan that Gohan was able to realize the powers of his beast transformation. If Gohan training with Piccolo before the Tournament of Power allowed him to go from being weaker than Piccolo in his Super Saiyan to rivaling pre-Tournament of Power Super Saiyan Blue Goku, then imagine what just a single year of training would do for Gohan without even needing to waste time on his ultimate form. Gohan's powers would literally just pick right back up where they left off in the Buu saga. And after a few solid months of Gohan consistently training, Gohan's powers would probably be on the same level as they were before the Tournament of Power. And as crazy as it sounds, Gohan does get this powerful even without having any God Ki or special training in canon, and being much weaker from the start of his training at best. And for the next 4 years, Gohan would only continue to grow stronger on top of that power. While it's hard to quantify just how strong Gohan would actually become in the next 4 years of seriously training with Piccolo, I believe that Gohan would probably be stronger than any version of his ultimate form that we've seen in the canon storyline even before Battle of Gods. But this training wouldn't only benefit Gohan. Piccolo would also see a significant gain in power because of his training partner. Even though Piccolo doesn't have the insane potential of characters like Gohan, Frieza, or Broly, I do believe that Piccolo would grow substantially stronger as a result of training alongside Gohan. There's also a strong possibility that Piccolo would see the results of Gohan awakening his potential and would ask Dende to do the same for him. This would lead Broly to Dende upgrading the Earth's Dragon Balls, and Piccolo wishing for his potential to be unlocked, just like he did during Super Heroes. At bare minimum, Piccolo would certainly surpass Goku and Vegeta with his new potential unlocked form, and depending on how much stronger you think Piccolo got during Dragon Ball Super, he could also be a god level fighter on his own right, just like Gohan. But unfortunately for Gohan and Piccolo, even though the two fighters would see a massive and unprecedented increase in power, their next opponent would be Lord Beerus, who would awaken across the universe from his slumber. When Beerus wakes up from his sleep, he would still have the hunger to battle with the legendary Super Saiyan God from his dreams. Whis would point to Goku as the Saiyan that managed to defeat Lord Frieza, and Beerus and Whis would travel to King Kai's planet, facing off against Son Goku himself. The only change that I would make to this particular battle is that Goku would also show Beerus his Super Saiyan 4, since we now know that Goku can technically still use this form at any time during Daima. It wouldn't change the outcome of the battle between Goku and Beerus or Goku getting one shot, but it's just a nice addition to the story to keep everything consistent. After an unsatisfying battle with Goku, Beerus would travel to Earth in search of the remaining Super Saiyan God candidates. Of course, Beerus intruding on Bulma's party ends up going south and ends in an all-out battle between Beerus and the other Z fighters. The first thing that Beerus notices is that even though Piccolo is just a Namekian, he's still substantially stronger than any of the other Z fighters. Beerus also notices that Gohan is insanely strong on his own, and the two as a pair don't go down easily like the rest. Piccolo just barely manages to keep up with Gohan as they tag team Beerus and practice some of the combinations they learned in their training. You have to remember that the concept of Godly Ki hasn't been introduced to the Z fighters beyond the rumor of a Super Saiyan God from Beerus. If the Z fighters have never even felt the level of power that beings like Golden Frieza, Broly, and Jiren have shown throughout the series, then imagine the sheer pressure that Gohan's aura alone would cause after 4 years of training with Piccolo. Even so, Gohan and Piccolo should realistically be stronger than they were in Super Heroes in their respective ultimate forms, which makes sense with the amount of training that they've done together. At this time, Beerus would also have had no way of knowing that Gohan and Piccolo were this strong in the series, especially since he would not have sensed any God Ki within Gohan or Piccolo. Jiren is the only being that's even rumored to have a power that surpasses the level of a god of destruction, and to Beerus' knowledge, Frieza was the most powerful being in Universe 7 before he took his rest. During the Dragon Ball Super manga, a much weaker Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta was able to catch Beerus off guard with a few attacks, mainly due to Beerus' arrogance and overconfidence. Because of Beerus' lack of preparations and not knowing what to expect from Gohan and Piccolo, the initial combos and tag teaming between Gohan and Piccolo would actually be extremely effective against Beerus. Gohan and Piccolo would land several blows on the God of Destruction and would fare much better in the fight against Beerus than Super Saiyan God Goku ever could. But once the adrenaline and the thrill of battle kicks in for Beerus, whatever grounds that Beerus would have lost during the battle would be quickly recovered by the God of Destruction, and it wouldn't take long for Beerus to begin wearing down Gohan and Piccolo. Around this time, Goku would also arrive to the battlefield, but there isn't a need for him to intervene yet. He's amazed that Gohan and Piccolo are actually fending off Beerus. As fun as this battle was for Beerus, he was still convinced that if Gohan and Piccolo were this strong without having any godly ki, then the Super Saiyan God from his dreams had to be even stronger. While fighting Gohan, Beerus could sense that there was something dormant within Gohan's powers, something that he wasn't showing. Beerus isn't familiar with the way that Gohan's potential works yet, so initially Beerus takes Gohan's dormant power as a sign of him holding back. To investigate further, Beerus would purposefully take out Piccolo with one swift attack, showing that Beerus was still holding back a lot to gauge their strength. Beerus would turn his attention to Gohan, questioning him further on if he was hiding the powers of the Super Saiyan God. Of course, Gohan would deny having even heard of the Super Saiyan God before, let alone being one himself. Having had enough of their games, Beerus would create an asteroid-sized sphere of destruction, one on a scale that the Z Fighters had never seen before. Beerus would threaten that if Gohan wouldn't reveal the powers of the Super Saiyan God, the Earth and everybody on it would be destroyed. After realizing the grave danger that they were all in, Goku, Vegeta, and a few of the other Z Fighters would rush in to aid Gohan. Videl would also rush to Gohan's aid, but even with the combined might of all of their powers put together, Beerus' Spear of Destruction was still too strong for the Z Fighters without Goku and Vegeta's God Ki. At this moment, as they all struggled and as the Spear of Destruction inched closer and closer to the planet, Videl would confess her pregnancy to Gohan, and the realization that Gohan was a father and remembering why he chose to continue his training in the first place would suddenly cause something within Gohan to snap. From Beerus' perspective, a large surge of purple electricity would begin to slash the waters below. The nearby Z Fighters along with Bulma's ship would be completely blown away by a massive gust of wind, and the Spear of Destruction that once pushed back the Z Fighters would come to a halt. With a massive eruption of energy, Beerus' Spear of Destruction would completely disperse, and in a blinding flash of light, a new Gohan would stand before Beerus. Gohan's eyes were red and filled with rage and tears. After the blinding flash of light, Goku and the others could hardly believe what they were seeing. Gohan's hair was large and now the color white. His muscles were far bulkier and his entire demeanor had completely changed. And with this new power increase, Gohan's beast transformation was now complete. As Beerus looked onwards at Gohan, he could tell that something had drastically changed. Beerus could sense that Gohan still wasn't even using an ounce of godly ki. But on the other hand, the ki that he was using was far more impressive than anything he had ever sensed in a mortal before. This was the dormant power that he felt from earlier, but it wasn't what he was expecting. As a way to test this power, Beerus would create 10 more spheres of destruction to send at Gohan, but in a split second, Gohan would already be right in front of Beerus, throwing a punch that would send Beerus flying backwards, while also simultaneously destroying each one of Beerus' attacks. From a distance, Beerus caught himself mid-air and acknowledged that Gohan's punch actually really hurt. With Beerus' paw, he wiped his face and he could see that Gohan's last attack made him bleed. This version of Beast Gohan is by far stronger than any version of the Beast Gohan form that we've seen in the canon story. Gohan's 4 years of training had finally truly come to fruition, being an ultra-level power increase without the Z Fighters even knowing what godly ki was. From this point on, Beerus' battle with Gohan was far more ferocious. They would immediately take to space, throwing punches that would shake the very fabric of the universe around them. Although it's very clear that Beerus still has the major advantage when it comes to speed, even still being marginally stronger than Gohan, he isn't necessarily winning that battle easily either. Gohan was gradually getting stronger, and thanks to his consistent training, he's able to grasp the powers of his beast transformation much quicker than he would have in the canon story. Even though Beerus was still able to dodge a good amount of the physical contact from Gohan's attacks, the sheer force behind Gohan's punches would actually leave scratches on Beerus' face. His aura was so raw and ferocious that it almost took on a physical form that could still harm and damage Beerus. As the battle reached its climax, Gohan would erupt in power, channeling every last ounce of his strength for one final attack. Beerus would also do the same, gathering up all his energy to finally put down Gohan. But as the two launched at each other mid-air, prepared to land the most powerful punches that Dragon Ball has ever seen, Whis would appear between the two fighters, chopping Beerus at the neck, instantly incapacitating him, while also blocking Beast Gohan's punch with a single finger. Whis would use his arms and his body to spin both Beerus and Gohan to opposite ends, dispersing the shockwave from their attacks and preventing the two fighters from wiping out the entire galaxy. With the tap of his staff, Gohan and Beerus will be teleported back to Earth's atmosphere, and both fighters will be healed of all of their injuries. Whis would thank Gohan for giving Lord Beerus such an entertaining battle, but the fun had to stop here or else Beerus could risk destroying the entire universe. But this wasn't all that Whis wanted to say to Gohan. Thanks to observing Gohan's battle with Beerus, Whis could tell that Gohan had a tremendous amount of potential, a potential that could lead him to doing great things in the future. Whis offers that if Gohan would like, he could come with Whis to train and reach a new divine level of power. Of course, with the only condition being that Gohan had to agree to become Universe 7's next God of Destruction candidate. At this point, Gohan's relationship isn't that strong with the gods after Beerus threatened to destroy the Earth, so he declines and chooses to remain on the planet. Whis respects Gohan's decision, but leaves the door open by giving Gohan a communication device. If he ever changed his mind, he could just give Whis a call and his real training could begin from there. With that, Whis would be off with Beerus and Gohan would return with the other Z fighters to recoup from the battle. After Gohan celebrates the news of his wife being pregnant with Pan, Gohan would tell the others that while Beerus left, there was a high chance that he could return in the future. Gohan didn't actually beat Beerus, the man that came with him just stopped their battle, and he seemed to be far stronger than Beerus himself. Goku would mention that Beerus had also come to King Kai's planet first in search of something called a Super Saiyan God. Naturally, Goku and the others would turn to Vegeta for answers about this mysterious being, but Vegeta hasn't ever heard of the Super Saiyan God being before. This is where Goku has the idea of calling on Shenron to learn the identity of this Super Saiyan God for themselves. Perhaps if they could learn who he was and why Beerus was after him, he can help the Z Fighters stop Beerus when he eventually returns. It's then that Shenron is summoned and reveals that the Super Saiyan God is not an individual fighter, but rather a state of being that can be achieved by the Saiyans via a ritual. With this information, the Saiyans decided that they would at least try the ritual and make sure that it works in case Beerus ever came back. Goku is naturally the first candidate for the Super Saiyan God ritual, but Goku initially declines. He wasn't a fan of having a power that he didn't earn for himself, and plus, they didn't know if the Super Saiyan God ritual was actually going to work, let alone even once. If they were going to risk only one being able to perform the Super Saiyan God ritual, then it needed to be on a person that had the highest chance at defeating Beerus. That would be when Goku would elect Gohan to become the first Super Saiyan God. Because of Vegeta's pride, he also agrees to let Gohan go first, since he doesn't want a power that Kakarot thinks is too inferior for him. And with that, the Saiyans along with Videl would gather around Gohan and would begin to pour their Saiyan energy into his body. The ritual is successfully completed, and Gohan's hair, eyes, and aura would turn into a fiery red. Although the Z Fighters could no longer sense Gohan's ki directly, the pressure that his power was emitting was very intense. With the ritual complete and with no other opponents left to face, Gohan would then power down but could still feel the divine energy flowing within his body, somewhere deep within him waiting to be called again. After a moment, Piccolo would suggest that Goku and Vegeta also give the ritual a try. It wouldn't hurt to know if multiple Saiyans could achieve the Super Saiyan God form in case Beerus proved to be too strong for Gohan to defeat on his own. The Super Saiyan God ritual is successfully performed on both Goku and Vegeta, who become the second and third Super Saiyan gods. And now that the Saiyans had a plan and a course of action, they could begin their training for the next few months, honing their newfound strength and practicing the ritual over and over again. When the day finally came, the Saiyans would fight together as an army of Super Saiyan God warriors, but for now their training would begin. And with this new divine energy surging within Goku, he wants to be the first to test this newly awakened power on Gohan's beast transformation. From across the universe, Beerus would stare off into the sky from his planet. The Saiyans had actually managed to achieve the powers of the gods. But at this very moment, Beerus chose not to pursue the Saiyans. He knew that they would still be too weak to actually defeat him, and he was still a bit exhausted from his battle with Gohan. When the time came, perhaps in the future, Beerus would return to Earth for his rematch with son Gohan, and for more tasty Earthling food. But for now, he would return to his bed for another nap. And in the deep corners of space, a familiar ship would linger in the distance, setting their course for Earth and preparing to use the Dragon Balls to revive their long-lost Emperor. Alright guys, so if you made it this far, then I really do appreciate you all for watching. As always, I really do appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.